I am sitting here with the beautiful Tina of Sky Studio, and I just had a session with her and the Lucia Light here. And Tina is really special because she was the first person to bring a Lucia Light into Canada, and also you're the distributor for this light in Canada. I had a whole bunch of questions written out before my experience, and we'll see if they are still relatively the same, because I know every experience that everyone has with this light is kind of different. And I've heard people who were underwhelmed, people who are overwhelmed, people who say it's like psychedelics, people who say it's more like meditation. Like, people's experience with this is all over the map, so you can't really ask, what is this experience like, and get one answer. The function of it is to help you access an altered state. Is that correct, to simplify?
Sure, that is one thing. I mean, it depends what people are looking for. It was created to open the third eye, and it came from one of the two developers who's a psychologist, having had a near-death experience and wanting to take people into that realm or dimension where you're no longer in the third dimensional reality, because what he came to understand in studying all the different, researching near-death experiences for many, many years and trying to figure out how do we recreate that opening. And so that was his mission, was to recreate that opening, and the purpose for him to do that was because he recognized that all the people he interviewed and things he read and came to understand showed him that there's a huge opportunity to make very important shifts when you can get to that other realm. It's like it puts things in perspective. You come back from there and you are forever changed. Yes, you can go back to all the small little worries of the day in the world, but it does give you a new reset. It gives you that space to go, okay, something profound has just happened,
Right.
and I have a greater understanding that these are little things here that we're all caught up in.
It's an expansive experience, right?
Exactly.
And so you just go out far and wide, and then when you see the minutia of your day and those things that you get caught up on, those experiences that help you zoom out are really important in putting things in perspective.
Right. You are getting that opening, and it's effortless. You don't even have to know what meditation is. You don't have to know how to meditate. It still gives you that opportunity to make that connection to pure conscious state. And you're connecting to the greater aspect of who you are.
If you actually covered your eyes, would it do the same thing?
No, because it travels through the optic nerve and targets the pineal gland, which is a little organ right in the center of the brain.
I felt that. I felt like a place in there that was like being...
You could feel the activation.
Yes.
Yes. Like some people come out and go, okay, I feel like I have like a very slight headache, but it's not really a headache, it's more a pulsation.
Yes, I felt that.
Yes.
But it was just a pressure like enough to be aware of the area.
Right. Well, a lot of activity is happening. So all those lights coming and going and the flashing, like we looked at it together at the end of your session.
Yeah.
All that is an activation of the pineal gland.
Wow.
And again, it was decades of research and development to come to the place of creating this light.
Yes.
And they knew that opening that Dr. Winkler was looking for couldn't fully be experienced until the activity was added to the light. So he had created opportunities to go into trance states and really deep meditations, but it wasn't until he brought in the neurologist who he teamed up with, who said, if we add the activity to the light, we will get that opening.
Oh, wow.
So that activity really registers, and some people who are sensitive can feel it. What I started doing with people who were sensitive was, intuitively, I just felt like instead of it being on their third eye, which is an energy center,
yes,
that chakra, how about if I put it on their root?
Yes.
Which is going to be super grounding.
Yeah.
And then it was this thing where I think, well, now I'm going to put it on this person's heart, because I feel like there's not like it's a need, but I was drawn to do these things. So these people, like you said, what would happen if you covered your eyes? Some of these clients would come out and describe wild and crazy journeys they were on. I'm like, how are you seeing things?
Yeah.
But they were able to still get into some kind of visual activation.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect that, and I wouldn't say, oh, it doesn't matter where the light is, you'll still get the effect. Unlikely, but there are people who do get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, quite, intensely.
Yeah.
And the light could be on their root chakra, and they're having a full visual experience while wearing a blackout mask. If we're targeting the third eye, and the outcome is what you experienced, where you're creating these beautiful, you've got your own meditation that's super visual because we've opened your inner vision. What happens when we put it on the other energy centers? So in my way of trying to sense it, was that if it can do that to the third eye, I'm quite certain that it can do a lot of things to each energy center. So if it's on the heart, I'm quite certain it would create an expansion.
Yeah.
And also at the same time filling up.
Yeah.
So you and I briefly talked about it being very much a mental exercise.
Mm-hmm.
It's all happening in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
However, you come out with a very balanced mental and emotional, it's very cohesive. Mm-hmm. So you're not just having had this really big mental experience and not feeling it.
Yeah.
It drops into your feeling body. So the mind and the heart are very connected to the journey.
Yes.
And so I have seen outcomes that have surprised me by using the light on the body, and the feedback that clients are giving me has made me really practice in a new way.
That's so interesting. Yeah, like how you intuitively developed that. I love it. And I did feel it on my root chakra. And it felt really good. And I didn't really feel it on the other ones so much, but it's interesting that it did register, and then you get that feedback, and you're like, depending on where somebody kind of needs something or other, they'll feel it there, and
it will always be different.
Yes, because every day we're a different person every day, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so another concept that I've been exploring with almost everyone I talk to is how could this work, right? How could a light shining on a body work and do anything? But the thing that I like to bring into the conversation is the illusion of solidity. Like the fact that we think we're just this impenetrable body and nothing can get through, but a lot gets through. There's so much space in the human body. There's so much space in everything. Atoms, this amount of space between atoms is huge, and we're all, even a human body has a frequency. This light has a frequency. On the quantum level, there's so much interchange happening. And so with our limited understanding of our human senses, it seems impossible that a light could enter our body and do anything. But you have to actually reimagine the human body on a much, much smaller scale and realize that there's a lot happening down there on that level. Mm-hmm. So and then be open. That's once you understand that, you can understand how a lot of energy healing practices work, or light practices work. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well put.
I say this a lot. I talk about it a lot because I talk to a lot of people who are working in sort of energy healing modalities where they're working in this invisible realm.
Yeah.
So how do we bring people along on this journey?
Well, it's word of mouth is often the best way, because you've had an experience now. So someone else may hear what you have to say and appreciate that it's time to open ourselves up to some new ways of, I don't want to use the word healing, but in fact, that's what our clients are telling us. It's not us saying, oh, you have anxiety, the light will heal it. We never pretend that this is a healing device. It was created as a very deep meditative device. It is, it goes way beyond any of our expectations, because at the root of it, if we open ourselves up to the greater aspect of our consciousness, then everything's available to us. So the light is a beautiful distraction of the busyness of the day, the reel that we run with, the nonsense of, someone who does struggle with anxiety or depression typically runs a very self-limiting thought process that picks up momentum when things are hard. And when you use the light, it breaks up those frequencies, because it does run on frequencies, and it is something that affects the brain. So when we can move all that human dialogue aside, even if it's for a short period, it opens us up to hope and possibility. And so in that way, people start to have a sense of well-being. That even if they're struggling with things, there's this space that you get to that feels like, oh yeah, there's joy. There's love. There's hope. And it gives you peace. So you have that break in the busyness. So no matter what kind of mood or experience someone is having in their day, when they get here, they don't leave the same way. It's like we've pulled the plug on the emotional charge of something, and it's like, peace, reset. What are you going to do with it?
I'm a big believer in that. Like these modalities, like you said, they're not healing. They are helping you achieve states of being where your body enters into its own natural healing abilities and states, right?
And what is more profound than the way the body tries to heal itself anyways? So it's like, if we remove the problem, the solution can come in. So the problem is usually, the conversation, the self-limiting thoughts, the habits, those things. So if we move that aside, like people who work with medicine will say the death of the ego. So in this case, it's just quieting the mind. And yes, we can do that when we enter deep, deep states in meditation, but how many of us can go there? Certainly none of us can get where the light can effortlessly take us. But meditation is a huge part of our well-being in this day and age, and the light is like a meditation hack. It just takes you there and gives you an opportunity to really allow the body to use its own wisdom to create the well-being.
Amen to that. And also on the note of like altered states, right? For people who are interested in this like almost buzzword, and it's like, I don't think altered states to me aren't unfamiliar states. Like I was hearing about the state, what is it called? Hypnagogic state, which is like that one between sleep and wakefulness. And
or lucid state.
A lucid state.
Is a dream state. Am I awake? It's that moment of slipping out.
So it's not like altered states, I don't think, are things that we're unfamiliar with. We experience that altered state every day, or the altered state you can achieve with meditation is really just like a deep connection to yourself. Or like all of the altered states we can achieve with breath work and light and meditation and all of these things, they're actually really familiar states of consciousness that we just need to actually carve out the time to experience. And and in those altered states, we're accessing so much value in so many ways that we've already mentioned.
The other state, though, that we enter with the light is psychedelic states. And I don't know if you had psychedelic moments, because you did quite a gentle program today.
I mean, in a way, it was more of a kaleidoscope, which is like, if I don't know if I call that psychedelic.
I think it enters into that realm, the kaleidoscopic. It does get a little bit psychedelic. So the stronger programs usually take people very deeply in psychedelic states.
Okay, yeah.
So you're creating different visuals, and of course every time you do, even if you did the same session 100 times, you will be on 100 different journeys. So there's no telling what you will create. But we have come to understand that there are a lot of benefits in being in psychedelic states.
Okay.
And a lot of well-known people today, teachers, gurus, Joe Dispenza comes to mind, because he actually tries to, in some of his meditations, have people get into kind of a trance state looking at psychedelic visuals, because there's an understanding that there are huge benefits to entering those states.
Wow.
In the light, you're making the psychedelics. So you're not just appreciating that, whoa, yeah, that's cool, and I'm getting into a deep trance. You're making it. It's a big difference. And the benefits that a psychedelic could give you have been proven by Dr. Schwartzman out of the University of Sussex. He did a study for a few years using the light to prove that the psychedelic states the light gets you into are the same states that entheogens, psychedelics, take you into.
Wow.
With no downtime.
Yes.
It's like if somebody feels like, oh, okay, that's too much for me, you just hit a button and it's off. It's not like, well, you'll be okay in a few hours.
Yeah. And not even
there's
kind
no
of okay.
risk.
Yeah.
And then there's no time to overcome it.
Yeah.
It's like you come out of it and you feel very much like you're between probably that lucid state you're talking about. When you first came out of it, you're sort of more there than here.
Yes.
And that's what I was saying to you. It's a really sweet time for us who are working with our clients, because we're witnessing this purity, this very soulful time with them.
Oh, that's so
right?
nice.
But I think having just had a light session, you know what I mean, right? It's just
definitely.
This very raw and very vulnerable, but very lovely and sweet.
You are really like with somebody when they're transcending almost themselves. That's really
it's
interesting.
Pretty powerful time.
Yeah.
So it's like just, that is really for me, talking about sacred space. Like we all have heard it. I thought I understood it, and until I worked with the light, it had a meaning, but this is really for me exactly what we were just talking about, because people are traveling through different states, and we just get to hold that space and not interfere with it, and not try to use all our gifts, because any of us who are working with the light have done a lot of other energy studies, and we've been attracted to this world, and suddenly we're doing this work. But it's about respecting that this journey belongs to our client, and we are not the creator of the journey. We are here to just make sure the client feels safe and comfortable to let go, so they can create their ultimate connection and journey.
That's so great. Thank you for holding that space for me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, that's really special for me. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
The only other, it was one passing thought that I had, but it was about strobing lights, and it was about the only other time you really see a strobing light is in a nightclub. And in a nightclub, they're also using sound and substance to try to reach altered states. And I thought, how interesting. And we kind of like extrapolate these things out now, and it's like you can go to a sound bath, and you can go to this light experience, and you can take plant medicine. And how weird that almost like the culture has been drawn to mixing these like different medicines together to try to like transcend themselves. Like the young people like in the club just using dance as well.
Yes.
You throw dance
movement,
in there.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, how almost like medicinal is a club atmosphere, except that it is toxic the way that we've made it, but in its components, it's like so many healing modalities that the kids are mixing together.
And they're attracted to it for some reason,
Yes.
right? There's something even greater than what they think they're doing there.
Yeah, and
right?
because if you sit in your living room with a strobe light, it's just kind of like a red and green and yellow, and you're just like, oh my God. But like, yet you put it in this atmosphere where all of these other things are going on, and it makes sense, and it's like, you know, they're trying to achieve something with it. But yeah, that was my only thought when I was thinking of strobing lights, and where else do we use them?
But you're right in that in those environments, we're activating so many of our senses, whereas when you do a private light session, it's more about you being more introspective and having a very personal, very quiet time to travel into what you're going to create.
Yeah.
So I'm not making this up myself. I think it was Dr. Winkler who said, you are both the artist and the observer at the same time, which is a rare thing to say. It's like you're creating the piece and experiencing it and observing it all at once. It's quite powerful.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's the thing I'm going to have to process. That's so cool.
Yes. And the light has been used. I've used it in 3 art installations in Vancouver, which is so fabulous, but also in Europe. It was in a gorgeous art exhibit, and it's like people walk through and enjoy the art. And in one space, the light is set up and they can sit down and have a 5-minute light session and get up and walk through the gallery again. So can you imagine how that might be a little bit different?
It would be so different. Like the way that my mind feels right now, I'm getting absorbed into the fabric of this painting that I can see on the other wall.
Yes.
Like I just want to, my eyes want to just fall into it.
I know. It's almost like your eyes are more open.
Yeah.
You can see things more clearly somehow.
Oh, it's gonna be so wild just to walk out the door and be like, oh my God.
Yeah, and don't be surprised if you sleep more deeply or have more vivid dreams. Those are things we hear often.
It's also a super full moon, which like super extra full moon, and it's also like a blue moon, so we've already had a full moon this month, and the moon is, I think, 26,000 kilometers closer to Earth or something right now than it normally is.
37 more years before this happens, something like that.
So my dreams have already been wild, so I can't wait to sleep tonight.
Well, people often say, yes, they could be very active and more vivid, but typically you'll have like a really deep, restful sleep.
That'll be nice.
And people who struggle with mood things will often say to us, you know, I'm feeling like I wake up in the morning and I don't have to work hard to get out of my funk. I'm just feeling good when I wake up. And because that little organ, the pineal gland, it also produces hormones like serotonin and melatonin. So while you're under the light, activating that gland gets it producing more of those hormones.
I feel like super happy right now. Not that I wasn't when I got here, but I just feel like really joyful.
Like extra joy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like everything's amazing.
Yes, exactly. So not to really wanting to make that correlation between this and other substances, but the reason people feel so good when they use MDMA, and it has proven to be a really powerful way to heal people and to work with people with major trauma and PTSD, is because they can touch those places of joy and love. And the reason that's available is the serotonin levels of your body are just activated, and suddenly you're accessing a lot of serotonin that isn't normally available to you.
Yes.
The downside of that is usually there's a crash when the MDMA is out of the body because your serotonin levels have been fully depleted.
Right.
Even having said that, at the end of, say, a 12-week course of very mindfully done therapy with someone with PTSD, they know that even the ups and downs of the surge of serotonin and the drop often they take antidepressants in between just to bring the serotonin levels back up. There's still an upside at the end of it, because these people who have been dealing with horrific trauma get to touch hope and love and remember that feeling of joy. So no matter what's happening in between, they still come out ahead because they've touched those spaces. Yeah, and we are very blessed that that community is starting to understand that supporting those journeys with the light is very helpful, because the light activates the gland and it starts making serotonin. So instead of depleting your serotonin, you are feeling happier. Even if you're a happy person, there's this extra little like, wow, everything is even more amazing right now. So wow, no so downside. Great. If you are, the few things that we watch out for, obviously people who are epileptic should not work with a strobe light. You can't come and do this if you've taken any substance that alters the brain chemistry, because the light is also doing things in your brain, and we don't think more is better.
I wouldn't recommend that either. I think it would be uncomfortable.
We don't offer that to people. It's not, the two together are not the recipe here. You don't need it. It's like,
you don't want to be in the club just throwing everything in the pot. It's really all of these modalities actually separated out are really powerful on their own.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they all kind of work. They work in harmony, but I think it's mixing everything together doesn't make it better. You're such a great wealth of information on this, and you've filled in so many blanks for me today that I've been wondering for like years. And I can't wait to come back again and recommend people to come here. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Such a pleasure. Of course.
It's been great.
Thank you.